Subscribe, like, comment, and share to stoke the fires of retribution. What happens when a sister's burden becomes a family's demand? Can one woman reclaim her worth from the ashes of expectation? Prepare for a tale of suspense, resilience, and unexpected betrayal. I'm Claire Morgan. I turned 32 last spring. For most of my life, I've known my place in my family. Behind my sister. My sister Emma, 3 years older than me, was the golden child. She received the smiles, the praise, the second helpings in the good room. She did everything right. At least in the opinion of our parents. She married at 24. Had 2 boys by 27. Baked casseroles from scratch. Sent out Christmas cards in September. And me? I remained single. Dedicated to my career. Rented a quiet apartment across town. Where no one inquired why I hadn't settled down. I had a 401k. A Roth IRA. No thought of asking for help. Apparently, none of that counts when you're not a ring wearer. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, never did say it. But their questions always weighed. Don't you want children before it's too late? Your sister's boys are growing so fast. It's a shame they don't have cousins. You're still in that apartment, huh? I learned to nod. To divert the subject. I used to believe if I tried hard enough, they'd see me at last. The way they saw Emma. But the reality caught up. Slow like dust on abandoned shelves. I wasn't the daughter they boasted about. I was the one they expected would be okay. No matter what. Still, I didn't complain. I came on holidays. Assisted with fixing the Wi-Fi. Brought wine when they remembered not to mark birthdays. Mine included. For the most part, I kept my distance. It seemed safer that way. I didn't know back then that distance wouldn't be enough. That one day they'd try to pull me in. So tightly I'd barely recognize myself. Emma's picture-perfect life began to unravel. Quietly at first. Then all at once. Like fine china shattering. Her husband, James, had been cheating for years. She found the messages by accident. Or maybe she was finally ready to stop pretending. When she filed for divorce, no one blamed her. Not even our parents. James vanished shortly thereafter. No child support. No apology. Gone. Emma was left with 2 boys, Liam and Noah. And a pile of bills she couldn't handle alone. Our parents were supportive in words. But their savings were invested in retirement and sentiment. Emma took an apartment, 2 bedrooms. Where the boys slept in one room. Wallpaper was peeling in the corners. I didn't hesitate. I paid her attorney's retainer. Paid 6 months' worth of rent when her part-time work at the community center wasn't enough. Stayed with the kids a few weekends so she could catch her breath. I never mentioned it. Expected nothing in return. I adored my nephews. And Emma, for all her former glory, seemed shattered. Like a person who wasn't accustomed to accepting help. Dreaded needing it. Still, I hoped that finally our parents would see the reality. Perhaps this time they'd get it. I wasn't the one with something to prove. They didn't. Each visit with Mom started with a report on Emma's pain level. Then a query about whether I was dating anyone yet. I said nothing. Did what I could. Reminded myself family meant showing up. Even when you were sick of being ignored. But the thing about always being the responsible one is this. Somewhere along the line, people start thinking your help is not a gift. It's a given. It was a Wednesday my mother called. Claire, honey, we have such good news. Can you come by tonight? Her voice had a lightness I hadn't heard in months. Maybe years. I had a fleeting thought James had resurfaced. That the courts had finally located him. Or that Emma's life had taken a turn for the better. Is it about the boys or the child support? I asked. No, even better, she replied. Just come over. Your father's already home, and Emma will be here too. I drove across town after work. Weary, but intrigued. There was something strange about her tone. Too practiced. Too slick. But I warned myself not to think too much into it. Perhaps for once it was truly good news. When I entered the living room, they were already seated. Dad on the recliner. Mom on the edge of the couch. Emma sitting next to her, smiling anxiously. On the coffee table was a manila folder. There she is, said Dad. Standing to embrace me. then placing the folder in my hands. Take a look. In the folder was a pile of papers, weighty with lawyer jargon and real estate symbols. At the top, mortgage agreement. What is this? I asked. It's for Emma's new house, Mom smiled. We put most of the savings and some of the retirement toward the down payment. Isn't it just great? I blinked. You purchased a house? Yes, she said. A nice place. 3 bedrooms. Large yard for the boys. They require stability. This apartment just isn't sufficient. I glanced at Emma. She nodded ever so slightly, but said nothing. That's wonderful, I said truthfully. The boys will adore that. I began to return the folder. No, those are for you, Mom stated, shoving it back towards me. What do you mean for me? Dad cleared his throat. We've discussed this as a family, and we've decided you'll cover the mortgage. You've been saving all these years. You can afford the payments. Emma can't afford it, Mom suggested softly. She's doing all she can, but the boys require this. The room fell silent. I could feel every eye on me. You're asking me to pay for Emma's house? Emma still refused to look at me. Once David was gone, I have nothing, she whispered. I can't do it for them without assistance. I glared at the mortgage. The figure was mind-boggling. I paid for her divorce already, I said softly. And 6 months of rent. I've been putting away 10 years for my own place, darling, Mom said, grabbing for my hand. We raised you. We've done so much. Is it time to give back? I rose to my feet. Heart thudding. After you bought a house knowing she couldn't pay for it because you thought I'd take care of it. Dad didn't protest. You don't have a husband, you don't have children, he stated bluntly. I'm not doing this, I told him. This isn't helping. This is manipulation. I left the folder on the table. Unopened. Left before I could begin screaming. Thought they'd calm down. Told myself that they'd see how ridiculous it all was. That demanding that your unmarried daughter contribute towards her sister's home wasn't something that most would stand up for. I was in the wrong. The initial call was made that Saturday from my cousin Laura. Someone I hadn't spoken to since Grandpa's funeral. April told me what happened, she said. No hello. No hesitation. I can't believe you're being so cold. Excuse me. I said. Emma's a single mom, Claire. Those boys are your nephews. You're sitting on all that money and won't help. I held on to the counter. Laura, you don't know the whole story. I know enough. Family does what family does. Before I had a chance to speak, she added, Emma would do the same for you. I nearly laughed. Bitter. Involuntary. No, she wouldn't, I murmured. You're unbelievable, she spat. Hung up. The texts began after that. Then voicemails. People I barely knew. Uncle Paul. Jessica. A cousin I hadn't heard from in years. Piling on. The messages ran together. You're selfish. They raised you. She has children. You don't. What affected me the most wasn't the outrage. It was the absolute confidence. As if they were certain without a doubt that I was in the wrong. That because I'd never created a family of my own, I was open game to support someone else's. Aunt Pat, my mom's older aunt, delivered the worst. She called during dinner. I just want to reason with you, she said in that syrupy voice she'd mastered. You're not getting younger, Claire. Who knows if you'll ever have children? Her tone was dripping with purpose. At least this way, you be doing something for your family's future. So since I'm available, I said, I owe Emma a house. Don't be melodramatic. They need it. And you, well, you're in a place where you can provide it. That gave me the strength to block every number that had rung in. One by one. If they couldn't respect my boundaries, they didn't deserve my peace. And I knew deep down something I hadn't wanted to face. This wasn't about the house. It never was. 2 months went by. I didn't hear from my parents, Emma, or anyone else I hadn't already blocked. I threw myself into work. Walked in the mornings. Allowed silence to become something akin to peace. Then the envelope came. It was on a Thursday. Thick. Official looking. I'd thought initially it was insurance paperwork. But when I opened it, My gut fell through the floor. They were suing me. Linda and Jerry Sanders. My parents had filed a formal complaint. They were seeking $350,000 in reimbursement for various costs associated with raising Claire Morgan. I read it twice. 3 times. Every line was colder than the previous one. They cataloged food, clothes, education. They had a section called Emotional Support Through Adolescence. I couldn't help but laugh reading it. They even attempted to tally vacations from age 6. And finally, in simple terms, money to be spent to satisfy the mortgage on the Sanders property bought for Rachel Sanders and her minor children. They weren't subtle. They didn't even make a pretense at principle. I called the best attorney I could get. Jennifer Madsen interviewed me the following day. She wore glasses. Talked as though she'd seen worse things. Didn't bat an eye while I told her everything. They have no right to your money legally, she stated bluntly. Browsing through the folder. Parents are required to look after their minor offspring. No legal right of repayment. So why sue me? I demanded. Jennifer shrugged. Pressure tactic. They figure you'll back down to escape court. Or maybe they actually think you owe them. I went numb. Then I grew angry. Then I was embarrassed for being either. During the next 3 weeks, I organized everything. Evidence of the $7,200 I'd spent on Emma's rent. The $5,500 payment to her divorce lawyer. Bank transfers to my parents throughout the years. $500 here. $1,000 there. Texts from my mother requesting just a little assistance when Dad's pension wasn't enough. I discovered receipts I hadn't recalled saving. Pulled reports from outdated email accounts. Each line was a memory I hadn't wanted to see again. When court time arrived, I dressed in gray slacks and a blouse my grandmother had given me years previously. I wore only what I had to bring. And Walter and Maggie, who appeared in silent rebellion of their own daughter. Grandma squeezed my hand. "What they're doing isn't right," she whispered. "But you already know that." Opposite the aisle, my parents sat with Emma between them. She looked everywhere but at me. I reminded myself to breathe. Not to hope. This wasn't about changing their minds. It was about showing mine still counted. The courtroom colder than it ought to have been in midsummer. The walls beige. The carpet thin. I recall thinking who had selected the chairs. Hard plastic. Impenetrable. Like they were made to punish waiting. My parents on the left. Emma between them. Aunts and uncles in the back. Individuals who hadn't sent me a birthday card in years. Now here to stand by the family. On my side were only 2. Grandpa Walt and Grandma Maggie. She had on a brooch I hadn't seen since childhood. When she leaned over and squeezed my hand, I nearly shattered. Then in walked the judge. He appeared to be in his 60s. Gray at the temples. Glasses riding low on his nose. The sort of man who didn't hurry to speak because he'd heard every type of lie already. My dad went first. "Your Honor," he started. "We're not unreasonable individuals, but we put our lives, our finances, our time into raising Claire. We're simply asking for a fraction of that back to assist our other daughter and her children." The judge didn't flinch. "Specifically," he stated, turning a page. "What did you spend on her education after she was 18 years old?" Mom and Dad looked at each other. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, Emma had just been married at that time. We were assisting her and her spouse in getting started." "So," the judge re-explained, "you did not pay for the defendant's college education." "No," Mom replied hastily. "But my mother, Claire's grandmother, did. And since she's my mother, I'd say we paid for her indirectly." Behind me, Grandma released the softest snort. Jennifer stood up. "Come. Systematic. Your Honor, we have records indicating that Ms. Morgan has been independent financially since she was 18 years old. Moreover, she has given ongoing financial assistance to both her parents and sister." She set down the file. Bank transfers. Receipts. Emails. This includes rent payments to her sister totaling $7,200. $5,500 to her divorce lawyer. Several direct deposits to her parents while they were reporting they had financial struggles. The judge read in silence. Then looked up. So the defendant wasn't receiving support, but giving it, right? Yes, Jennifer responded. My mother shifted uncomfortably in her seat. That money isn't pertinent, she complained. We're discussing the cost of raising her. Food, shelter, emotional guidance. Why specifically? The judge wanted to know. Do you need $350,000 immediately? Mom paused, glanced at Rachel. To assist Rachel in paying off the mortgage, she whispered. Silence. Even Uncle Don shifted uncomfortably behind her. The judge addressed Rachel. Should your sister pay for your house loan, Ms. Sanders? Rachel finally raised her eyes. She's not married. She has no children. I do, and that puts me in a financial burden, he asked. We're related. The judge's eyebrow went up. I'm not married either. Should I pay my clerk's rent or my bailiff's kids? Rachel blinked. Said nothing. The judge addressed my parents again. Did you give financial assistance to Catherine once she was an adult? We were assisting Rachel, Dad reminded. So, you favored one daughter over the other, he stated flatly. No accusation. Just fact. They didn't respond. He questioned them for the next hour with tough questions. Not vicious, but unyielding. Why did they think I would pay? Why buy a home they knew Rachel couldn't do without? Why connect assistance with guilt and guilt with debt? They provided the type of responses that crumble under their own weight. When we came out, Grandma hugged me first. You were solid, she told me. That's more than I can say for anyone else in that room. I wasn't certain if I'd succeeded. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one being tried. The verdict arrived a week later. The courtroom seemed tighter the second time. Perhaps because I was finally taking in air there. The judge didn't mince words. After considering the evidence, I believe the plaintiff's complaint is unfounded. Mr. and Mrs. Sanders, the cost of bringing up a child does not mean you are entitled to payment when that child turns into an adult. He looked down at his papers. Then upwards. In fact, the evidence presented indicates Ms. Claire Morgan has already given considerable financial aid to both you and to her sister. Then softly but not gently, frankly, I find your actions toward your daughter to be audacious and disappointing. Dismissed. Like that. I didn't rejoice. I didn't weep. I simply stood there as Jennifer grinned. Grandma gripped my arm. Grandpa breathed. You're free. I thought it was finished. It wasn't. A week later, the phone rang at my house. Your mother stopped by yesterday, Grandma said. Voice weary. She requested us to release her inheritance in advance. For what? I inquired. Though I knew already. To pay off Rachel's mortgage, she said. I sat down. What did you say? I told her we haven't decided who gets what. That the will is ours to control. Did she get angry? No, Grandma said. She cried. She begged us not to leave her out. I didn't know what hurt more. That she asked. Or that she cried over money, not me. Months went by. Quiet ones. I closed on a small house. Nothing grand. But mine. I painted the kitchen yellow. Planted tomatoes. Taken in a gray cat that slept on my laptop every night. Rented out her home. Moved back in with our parents. Mom babysat so Rachel could work. Somehow they made it work. I didn't call. I didn't write. Then nearly a year after the trial, an email arrived in my inbox. No subject. Just this. We heard you purchased a home. Now that you have more room, we believe it would be ideal for Rachel and the boys to live with you. It would be easier on them there. Let us know when they can relocate. Love, Mom and Dad. I read it twice. I did not become angry. I simply responded. I will not be entertaining Rachel or the boys. If you email me again with demands such as these, I will call the police harassment. Don't email me again. Hit send. Blocked the email. Made the tea. My home is filled these days with the scent of fresh basil and coffee. The cat, marble gray and serious, occupies the windowsill most mornings. Watching birds he'll never hunt. I painted the kitchen yellow like I told them I was going to. The tomatoes out back are finally ripening. It's peaceful here. No raised voices. No questions that I don't wish to answer. Grandma and Grandpa come by frequently. They bring pie or old newspaper articles they think I'll enjoy. Grandpa takes care of the gutters. Grandma still checks to make sure my windows are locked at night. Even with a security system. They don't mention my parents unless I bring it up. And I don't often. One Sunday afternoon, sitting on the porch swing, Grandma remarked, "Your mother's still talking about you. Still telling people you left Rachel." I didn't reply. "Your Aunt Pat told her to drop it at family gatherings." Said, "No one wants to hear it anymore." That part made me grin. I'm not naive. I know they still believe I failed some unspoken test of loyalty. That I should have acted. Even if it meant sacrificing everything I'd created. But I also know this. I sleep better now. Rachel, as far as I can tell, still lives at home. Renting out the house to pay the mortgage. The boys are growing up. I haven't seen them in more than a year. Sometimes I wonder what they've been told. Sometimes I wonder if they'll ever call. But I don't wait for it. I'm seeing someone. Mark. Kane. With a laugh that sounds like space being cleared. He doesn't ask about my family. Not yet. And I don't provide. Some bonds don't require explanation. Some bonds don't require repair. Every now and then, I get that pang of what might have been. If they'd ever really looked at me as more than spare parts. If love hadn't included fine print. But I don't regret refusing. Not anymore. Because peace, I've learned, isn't offered. Real freedom results from establishing boundaries and accepting self-worth, building a life no obligation can destroy.